Guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Allie and I make 2 new true crime videos every single week. I upload on Mondays and Thursdays, and today is our first Thursday upload and I'm so excited. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for growing my channel as much as you have in the past, what has it been? 3 weeks, I think? 4 weeks maybe? It's done so much better than I even thought that it would, and so thank you so much for that. I'm so excited, and I'm so excited. I've been talking to a few of you on Instagram, and I don't know, I feel like we're kind of building a relationship, and that's really cool, and that's what I wanted, and so thank you so much. And if you hear banging going on, it's my neighbors upstairs. I think it's their dinner time or something. So their kids run all over the place and they're moving their chairs. So it's not me, and I'm sorry, but it's my neighbors upstairs. So for today's first Thursday upload, we are going to be talking about a case that I had never heard of before, but one of you told me about it. And so I started looking into it, and the more I started looking into it, the crazier it seemed. And I don't know why I've never heard this before. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of coverage on this case out there, which just really shocks me. But we are gonna cover it, and hopefully we can bring some awareness to this case and help this family. So the case that we're going to be covering today is the disappearance of Joshua Guimond. Joshua Guimond was last seen leaving Metten Court on the campus of St. John's University in Collegeville, Minnesota at approximately midnight on November 9th, 2002. And before we get into all of the crazy details of this case, I want to tell you a little bit more about Josh. He was a really good kid. He was 20 years old when he disappeared, and like I said, he was going to college, and from what I've seen from his family and his friends, he was a really good kid. He was great in school. I saw that he was really intelligent. He was really driven. He wanted to become a lawyer someday. So I think he actually wanted to go to Yale for law school when he was done going to St. John's University. And so he wanted to work with the Minnesota House of Representatives. So he was very driven. He had a very clear plan for how he wanted his life to go. And he was a good kid. He had lots of friends, he loved his family, and he kind of stayed out of trouble from what I saw. You know, he never got into too much trouble. So on the night of November 9th, Joshua went to a party with his friends, and it was just a small get-together. I think they were playing cards, and so they were having this little party, and there was alcohol at the party, but his friend said that he had not been drinking. So from what we know, he was not intoxicated that night. Sometime around midnight, he told his friends that he was gonna leave. I think he told them that he was going to use the bathroom, or that's what they assumed, and so he left. And he went on this 3-minute walk from Metten Court to St. Moore's house, and that's where his room was in St. Moore's house. And it was a 3-minute walk, and from what I've seen on Google Maps and from what I've kind of read and heard about, it was kind of a windy, twisty walk. You know, you kind of had to go around the lake, and it wasn't like a straight shot. You had to kind of curve and go like that. And so he had to walk around this lake, and that's kind of an important fact. So the next day, his friends started kind of sounding the alarm because they couldn't get a hold of him. They were trying to call him. You know, he had left this party, and they thought maybe he was just going to use the bathroom. And when he never came back, they just assumed he got tired and decided to go to bed. But the next day when they called him, he wasn't picking up the phone. He wasn't answering any of their calls. And so they were starting to get really worried. And then he didn't show up for his mock trial club, and this kind of is what started the process of searching for him, because this wasn't something that he would miss. Like I said, he wanted to be a lawyer. He was really responsible, and he wouldn't have missed this club. So once that happened, that's when the search started for Joshua. But by this time, it was, I think, kind of late at night. It was already dark, and so they could only do minimal searches. So when the police questioned his roommate, he told the police he hadn't seen Josh since the night before, the night of the party at about 8:30, and this was right before he left for the party. So something that kind of stuck out to Josh's family and friends and investigators at the time is that Josh left behind almost all of his personal effects. He left behind his glasses and his contacts. He left behind his car, and it was completely undisturbed. There wasn't anything wrong with his car. He left behind his credit cards, and he left behind his coat. And that night, Josh was last seen wearing just a sweatshirt and a pair of blue jeans. And from what I've seen, it was kind of bad weather that night. It was cold. It was November in Minnesota, so I'm assuming it was probably snowy. And it was really, really cold. And so if he was going to be leaving for any extended period of time to leave campus, I would assume that he would take his car, and if not his car, he would at least take his coat, and he did not. Both were left behind, as well as, like I said, his glasses, his credit cards, everything was left behind. So this is when the search started the next day, and the National Guard was called in. Hundreds of locals were there to help search, and they kind of just searched the entire campus. They were searching all of the grounds. They were searching the lakes. I think there were 3 lakes that were kind of right there, and so they were searching those very, very closely. And they were not able to come up with anything. They could not find Josh, and they could not find a trace of Josh anywhere. The sheriff's department really concentrated their search on Stump Lake. I believe this is the lake that he would have had to kind of walk around on that walk between Metencourt and St. Moore's house. So he would have had to walk around this lake. And so that's where the sheriff's department really, really concentrated. And they weren't able to find anything. After fighting tooth and nail to get the sheriff's department to allow this, Josh's family was able to finally get this foundation called the Trident Foundation to come in and really thoroughly search all of these lakes. And so they were a foundation that had lots of underwater search and rescue equipment. And so they were able to come in, and they used all kinds of different sonars, and the lake was actually dragged, and still they were not finding anything related to Josh. But the sheriff's department just kept saying, like, oh no, he probably drowned. He was at a party. He must have been intoxicated. He drowned. And the family just was not happy with this. Obviously, there's no trace of him in any of these lakes. Why do we keep focusing on this? And that's just what the sheriff's department was doing. So in December of 2002, so the next month, a bloodhound named Hoover kind of came into this story. And Hoover tracked the scent of a missing young man named Chris Jenkins. He was a missing University of Minnesota student, and this dog Hoover tracked his scent to St. John's University, and specifically he tracked it to the doors of St. John's Abbey. So when he tracked the scent to the doors, they obviously asked for permission to go in so that Hoover could continue his search and hopefully continue finding the scent of this missing boy or person. And they were completely denied. They said, nope, you cannot come in here. And so at that point, I don't know what happened. I don't know if he was searching for Chris and then also working with Josh's family, or how it came about. But after he was denied access for Chris's scent, he started searching for Josh's scent. And so Hoover started searching for Josh, and he was able to also track Josh's scent to St. John's Abbey. And again, the search was halted. They were blocked from the Abbey. Hoover was not allowed in, and I believe their excuse was that dogs weren't allowed on campus, which I think it's a little different. It's a search dog. It's tracking somebody's scent to try to find this missing person. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that they would say pets aren't allowed, but it worked. So they were able to just say, nope, you can't come in here, which a lot of people think is really, really sketchy. Like, why wouldn't you let this search dog come in if he's tracking scents to your or Abby, but they wouldn't allow it. So Hoover actually followed Josh's scent from Metten Court, where the party was, to Stump Lake. From there, he tracked his scent to his apartment at St. Moore's house, and then he tracked it to St. John's Abbey. And after all of the debacle with not letting them enter for whatever reason, somehow they were able to get access into the back of the Abbey, I believe. And that's where Hoover tracked Josh's scent, inside, in that back door. And from there, he tracked the scent of Josh to a lake that was behind the Abbey. So this is kind of 3 different places where Hoover the Bloodhound is tracking Josh's scent, and it kind of matches with the timeline of where he would have gone. He started at Metten Court, he passed by the lake, he went to his apartment, and then he went to the Abbey, and from the Abbey, then he tracked his scent to this lake behind the Abbey. And so that's very, very suspicious, and we'll get into why in a couple minutes. But because Hoover was a bloodhound, his credibility was questioned. Sometimes, I mean, it's a dog. It cannot be accurate. It's not scientific. I don't think. So the police were questioning the credibility of Hoover. And so because of this, they didn't do a very thorough search of that lake behind the Abbey. They just took underwater cameras and searched. They didn't ever drag the lake. They never used any sonar or anything like that. And so that's very questionable to me. Why aren't we searching this lake as thoroughly when you think that this person drowned? That's been your story all along, but you won't check this one lake. Very, very suspicious. In 2004, St. John's University took out an order of restraint against Brian Guimond, and that's Josh's dad. And basically they took that out so that he was not able to search anymore on the campus or anything to do related to the Abbey to find Josh. And this was put into effect for 2 years, which is very, very detrimental to finding Josh. He went missing on this campus. His scent was tracked to this Abbey, but Josh's dad was not allowed to go and ask any more questions or search any more for Josh. So why is this Abbey important? Why do I keep bringing up St. John's Abbey and kind of fixating on that? There's a very, very important reason why. And this is that St. John's University and St. John's Abbey has had a very, very long history of sex abuse scandals with their priests and monks. And from what I've seen, Josh was very, very outspoken about these claims and these allegations. And I'm pretty sure that he was actually writing a paper to do with these sex abuse allegations. And so it's very strange that he is outspoken. He wants to be a lawyer, so, you know, he feels very firmly and very strongly, and he has very strong convictions in what he believes. And so he is writing this paper, he believes all of these things, and then he goes missing. And then the dog tracks his scent to this Abbey. Very suspicious. And I was not able to verify this. I don't know for sure, but I was listening to a podcast. I think it was called Unfound. I'll link it below. It's also linked on the Find Joshua website that's run by his family. So I think that they approve of this podcast. But in this podcast, this man was talking about Josh's dorm and the building of Metten Court and the residential advisors that worked there. The 2 residential advisors that were working the night that Joshua went missing, according to this person, were both, I believe, monks. I think monks who had credible sex allegations against them. So if this is true, these are 2 people that would have been in a position of power over Josh. He was at both buildings, and they both had sex abuse charges against them, or allegations against them, and he was very outspoken about this. So maybe one of them had something to do with his disappearance. I don't know. That's a theory. I was able to see, though, that St. John's was very well known for housing monks and priests on restrictions after being accused of sex abuse allegations and things like that. So I was able to confirm that. I wasn't able to confirm whether or not these people were actually working that night, but that is what this man said in the podcast, and I think Josh's family does believe it because they linked to the podcast on their website. So in 2016, St. John's Abbey actually released a 15,000-page document relating to 18 different monks and priests that likely offended sexually against minors dating back to the 1960s. So all of these things are kind of adding up, and I think that Josh was really onto something, and that worries me. So the theories for what happened to Josh. These are the theories that I found online. I'm sure that there are other theories. There isn't a whole lot of information out there that I could find. It's mostly just news stories and message boards. So I kind of delved deep into the message boards, but I'm sure that I could have gone a lot farther and found more theories. But these are the four that I kind of found that were the most prevalent. The first theory, and the theory that I am leaning towards after doing some research, is that St. John's University and Abbey were somehow involved in Joshua's disappearance. I think that there are way too many coincidences for them not to be somehow involved. Because all of the sex abuse scandals, there was the fact that Josh was looking into these sex abuse scandals, and we know that he was a very passionate person and he was very driven, and so I feel like if he felt very strongly about this, I think he would have been outspoken about it. So that's one reason why people tend to think that maybe the university and the Abbey were behind Joshua's disappearance. Another thing that I found online is that the day of, or the days after Josh went missing, a lot of files from his computer were deleted, and I believe that this happened after he went missing. I don't think it was him that did this. I think over 300 files were deleted from his computer. I know that some were recovered like years later, and they had to do with a fake ID ring. But I don't know if all of those files were to do with that fake ID ring. I almost wonder if maybe he found something that the university didn't want let out into the public. And so he disappeared, and then all of these files on his computer disappeared. I don't know that for certain, but it makes sense. And I almost wonder too if maybe that night he had some kind of a lead that he was following, and so he left the party early, and maybe he left the party, walked around the lake, went to his apartment to drop off his things, and then maybe went to the Abbey to follow this lead that he was investigating, and something happened at that point. I don't know. That's my theory, I think. Another theory from the podcast again that I was listening to earlier, he really believes that maybe one of the priests or monks were drinking that night. He said that there was like a long history of alcohol abuse at the Abbey. And so he ponders if maybe one of them was drinking and hit Josh with their car on accident. And then because of all of the negative things that were going on with the university and the Abbey and all of the allegations and everything, they didn't want any more negative press. They covered up the car accident involving Josh. That makes a lot of sense too, but again, I don't know. So that's kind of the two main theories that I've seen involving St. John's University. Another theory is that maybe he committed suicide. I don't think that this is the case. He was very driven. He had a very clear plan for how he wanted his life to go. He seemed very happy, and there were no warning signs. at all. And so I don't think that this happened. I don't think that this should really be questioned, and I don't think the family thinks that this is even a possibility. So I kind of cut that one out. Another one is that he kind of just left. He left out on his own and he wanted to start a new life. Again, I don't really believe that this is the case. He left everything behind. He, again, had a very clear vision of how he wanted his life to go. He was doing well in school. He hadn't gotten himself into any trouble, and so there was no reason for him to leave. I think the only reason that you would maybe question these last two theories is because he did have a breakup with his girlfriend of 5 years the month before. But from what I've seen, they were both on really good terms and they were still friends. And so that doesn't really make any sense to me to back up these theories. The fourth theory that I've seen kind of floating around out there is that his friends at the party or their roommate were involved and it was some kind of foul play. But I don't know. I don't see any reason why this would have happened other than maybe the fake ID ring. But I don't know why it would have come to that point, and there's been no evidence at all indicating that this is what happened. And it's been, I think, 16 years, maybe even longer. It's been a very, very long time. 2002, it's been 17 years. Yeah, 17 years since he went missing and nobody has talked. And so that makes me also think that this isn't even a possibility. The only other thing that would make sense to me is that it was foul play met by somebody that was kind of random, that Josh didn't know, or, you know, it wasn't an acquaintance. I have seen some theories linking his disappearance to the smiley face killers. I don't know if you know anything about that. I have watched a few things about it. And it does kind of make sense. Honestly, when the subscriber emailed me on Instagram and said that he wanted me to look into this case, and he started kind of explaining it, and as I was reading it, that's the first thing that came into my mind was, oh my gosh, I wonder if they've ever looked into the smiley face killer. But the more I kind of started looking into it, the more I think that it's not linked to that, just because with the smiley face killer, I'm pretty sure they found all of the victims. They found their bodies in bodies of water and then with the smiley face. And I haven't seen anything that showed a smiley face near any of these lakes. I would feel completely differently if they had found a smiley face somewhere near these lakes, but I haven't seen anything. So maybe if you've seen something that shows a smiley face, maybe we can kind of look into that deeper. But yeah, that was initially my first instinct, but after looking into it, I don't think that that's the case. Or it could have just been a completely random act of violence. But again, there's just not any evidence pointing towards that. You know, there was never any sign of a struggle. They never found his body. They never found a weapon. They never found anything. And so it all kind of leads back to St. John's, and I'm very, very suspicious of them. I don't know. I just can't rationalize it in my brain that it's just this random act of violence. I don't know. But saying that, there were a few disappearances that happened right around the same time as Joshua's disappearance, and they were all kind of the same age. They were all from kind of the same area, Minnesota and Wisconsin, but they found all of the other victims. They found 2 in bodies of water. So again, maybe the smiley face theory, I don't know. That could just be like really reaching, but they never found Joshua, and that just makes me think that it's not related to the others. because if they found them, why didn't they find Joshua? And I do want to add in, we were talking about Chris Jenkins earlier. They did end up finding him eventually. I believe they found his body in the Mississippi River. So whether or not it was connected to Joshua's disappearance, I don't know. I don't think that authorities ever connected them. I think they actually said that there was no way that any of these were connected. But it is something to look into because we just don't know where he is. So those are kind of the main theories that I found online. If you have any other theories, please leave them in the comments below and let me know. This is one of those cases that I think I'm going to keep looking into. It's just so strange. And I know we talked about Maura Murray before, and she's still missing too, but I don't know, this one kind of hits me differently. I don't know, maybe it's because it hasn't gotten a lot of exposure, and I feel like it should. It's been so long, it's been 19 years, and his family still has no idea where he is, what happened to him. So I think we just need to keep talking about it, and we need to get some new sets of eyes on it. I do know that the family is fighting to get the case files from the STEARNS County Sheriff's Department, and I think they're kind of being met with some hesitance. I think because it's technically still an open case, it's a cold case, they don't want to release the files, but I don't know, it's been so long. I feel like they should give the family the files. If there might be something in there that the family will find or somebody else will see, and it could crack open this case. So hopefully the family can keep some pressure on the Stearns County Police Department and be able to get some information from them. But if any of you have any information about Joshua, I will leave a phone number down below to the Stearns County Police Department. You can call them, give them the information. I know it's been a long time, but also, you know, you never know what you're going to remember. Just think about it if you were there during that time. Also, the family deserves some closure. I don't know if they believe whether or not he's still alive or not, but I'm sure that I would still have some hope. And so if you have any information, please give that to them. I believe the family has a Facebook page, so I'll link that below as well. But yeah, let's really look into this case. Let's see what we can find. The more eyes on it, the better, and hopefully we can get some exposure and get some information for this family. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like I said, this is a case that I'm going to continue to investigate. I really want to figure this out. I want to figure out what happened to Joshua. So thank you for watching. This is our first Thursday upload. I'm so excited about it. I will have another video going up on Monday, so keep an eye out for that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. It will allow you to see every time I upload. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up so that I know that you liked it. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.